Come on over now, take my hand,
Welcome back to Wondour. I am with the beautiful Miss Emily Chandler.
Hey.
And today, the question that came up, Miss Chandler, in our community line, and real quick for those of us that aren't a part of our community line, you've heard it once, I'm gonna say it again in every video. Register 702-602-8802. And once you register on our community line, when we have people like Miss Emily Violet Chandler, we answer those questions live on our YouTube channel for you guys to be able to get the answers that you are seeking. And in today's episode, Miss Emily,
Yes.
the question that everyone has been really asking me is, when it comes to supplements, we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yes.
There's so many different roads, outlets, revenues, marketing. There's just so much. What is the smartest way to navigate it for the business owner?
That is a fantastic question. So it is a hugely saturated market. I think it's $32 billion market in 2022, and it's growing by 8% every year.
Huge.
Which is insane. So there's so many products, there's so many ingredients. How do you make something that's gonna be remotely unique, that's gonna stick out and make you some money? Lots of things to navigate, but I have kind of thought about 3 potential risks that you can just think about ahead of time in order to navigate these shark-infested waters of the supplement industry.
Bring it.
Okay, so the first risk that you're gonna take as an entrepreneur, as a new supplement brand owner, is your inventory. Typically, manufacturing is very expensive. If you're gonna make a capsule, there's several huge machines that are involved. You have to have machines that blend the powder, and then there's an encapsulating machine. Sometimes there's 2, depending on how many capsules are gonna go into each bottle. You have a bottling machine, there's a label machine. Then you have to have people, humans, put these bottles into your box, and then you have to ship them out to your customers. So there's a lot of steps involved, and there's a lot of things that make this very expensive. The higher quantity you order, the cheaper your price point's gonna be. However, because it's a consumable, eventually that product's gonna expire. You can't just let it sit for years and years and sell that to a customer and feel confident about it. It's gonna be effective and safe for them to use. So you wanna be really mindful and mitigate the risk of ordering the right quantity and maintaining that inventory. You wanna find that nice sweet spot. How much can you realistically sell? And then how much can you realistically afford to buy? And so what we do at Spectrum is we kind of inform you about all of these risks and inform you about what your choices are so that you can effectively navigate your launch.
If someone has a gym with X amount of employees, or I'm sorry, X amount of clients,
Yes.
I can understand how someone can forecast an idea of how much product to make based on how many people are walking through the door.
Sure.
And things like that. How does someone think about it in the most cost-effective way if they don't? And they just have this dream of this supplement or something. How do you really train that person on, how to really forecast themselves out? Even if they have the money, you don't necessarily want them to buy $5 million worth of supplements, I would think.
I would take a look at your budget. And typically I advise people with anything between the $5,000 and $10,000 range is a good place to start. That's a lot of money for some people, and it's not very much money for other people. But still, that's kind of the range that I would shoot for in order
10 grand worth of products to start.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. 5 to 10 grand, depending on if you're starting out, nobody knows you, you don't even have a YouTube channel, I would go lower.
And then you would agree that in our day and age, getting yourself out on the socials, whether that's the TikToks, the Twitters, the Facebooks, the Instagram, the YouTubes, and building the brand and reputation and getting out the potential viral video, but even if it's not about the viral video, about getting the content branding out?
Absolutely. If you don't market to social media, I just think you're doing it wrong, because that is people's eyeballs are on that every day. It's a rare person that says they're not on Facebook, and even when they say that, they're still on it. Even though they're not posting, they're still looking and they're getting those targeted ads. So 1000%, if you have money to spend, put it into digital marketing.
I was with a guy yesterday at Starbucks, like literally yesterday, at a guy at Starbucks, and he was like, hey, can you teach me how to do this, basically? So I sit down with him and he tells me this idea of what he wants to do.
Yes.
And he wants to do this with no website, no social, and it's a service.
Okay.
And he was like, and no LLC. So no LLC, no website.
Just a guy
yeah,
out
just
there?
a guy that wants to just pitch. And I was just like, and I was telling him, and he's my friend. He's my friend. And yeah, he was basically telling me, he's like, well, I don't want a website. I was like, well, do you have your LLC? Like, just to start out, do we have an LLC set up to get this going? He's like, no, I was thinking about doing it under my name. And I was just like telling him, like, I don't know, man. I was like, you really got to get yourself branded out there. And, you know, we live in 2022.
Absolutely.
Where it really doesn't even matter anymore how good the product is.
Right.
Because what you mentioned, it's so oversaturated. How do you pick, Emily, like, you walk into a GNC or any of these, and there's like so many chocolate protein powders. You know, what really does make the difference? You know, and the reality is, you would hope majority of them are gonna be good for you.
Right.
You would hope that they all say what the label says.
Right.
You hope that they all taste good. You know, and those should be kind of givens, you know?
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So it's, you know, for myself personally, I take, I don't know, maybe 24, 60, about 100 grams of protein a day.
Okay.
60 for my breakfast, and then 40 when I go to bed. And the only reason I use Orgain, are you familiar with that brand?
No.
The only reason I use that is because my cousin told me, who's a pharmacist, she was like, this one has 0 cholesterol,
Yes.
and it's 100% plant pea
protein.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's why I drink it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
I mean, there is nothing like the word of a trusted friend or relative that advises you to take a product. That's how I hear about majority of stuff that I'm taking. But you better believe that I'm going to go and check out their socials and to learn more. And I'm a reviews person too, so I'll read the reviews, and you know, some of them are really funny. But you absolutely have to have a presence on the internet, at the very least, a website.
Okay, so Emily, that is number one when it comes to your inventory. Start out potentially on the small scale if you're just getting your toe in the water, if you will, 5 to 10K. Sounds great.
Yes.
Get it out there.
Still a big risk, but
Yes.
just to keep our viewers educated.
Yep.
This is what you're walking into.
Numero dos.
Yes.
We're going to talk about
Labeling.
labeling.
Yes.
Talk to us.
So there's a lot to navigate as far as your product label goes. The FDA regulates supplement labels and labeling for all foods. And you want to make sure that when you print your labels, all of that is compliant with the FDA regulations. So we'll help you with that at Spectrum. Of course, that's my job. But I think it's so valuable as a consumer, as a client, to be knowledgeable about what is expected to be on there. Because you absolutely do not want to make a label claim or have they're so picky. They want you to have the right font, the right size. You don't want to make a mistake and then have your product recalled. That's like death for your brand.
You do a lot of work overseas. This is probably a dumb question, but I don't know, so I'm going to ask.
Okay.
Are there different FDAs
Yes.
in the rules and the laws? And
primarily, I do a lot of exporting to South Korea, and their government pretty much copies what our government does, but they're much more strict. So when I export products to Korea, they actually physically take the capsules, they dump the powder out, and they test it.
after it's made? Oh,
Yes.
so just a batch.
Yes,
Okay.
they test it to make sure that what my label says is what's actually in the powder.
And other countries may not do that.
Correct.
Wow. So when brands come into America, are you familiar
As
with how?
far as I know, I don't know that the FDA does that. But I do know that they are very specific about what needs to be on your label. You can't make any claims, like you can't say your supplement is going to do this or
Cure
that
cancer.
thing or cure cancer. You actually have to have a disclaimer on there that says these statements have not been approved by the FDA. And you have to have specific warnings. If your product contains a lot of iron, you have to make sure it says keep out of reach of children. If your product contains a lot of fiber, you have to make sure you have a warning on there that says to consume it with a lot of water. So there's little things that you have to be able to navigate, and the FDA is always changing stuff too. They just changed all the label requirements in 2020 to where you had to list vitamin A and vitamin D percentage-wise on your label. So
I remember you told me this couldn't have been more than a month ago too. You had your batch ready for Korea, and then all of a sudden you were informed the same thing happened in Korea about the laws.
Yes. So we had to redo all of our import documents. The KFDA changed everything on the cosmetic side as well. So having a trusted product development agency who can guide you through those things is so important, but also super important to just be aware of what you're walking into. So, it's your money. You want to make sure that you know what's going on your label and that it's compliant with what the FDA wants to see. And then as far as your marketing claims, that's where you can get a little bit more creative. When you're telling your salespeople how to sell this product, You're going to inform them that they can recommend that this product will do this or that thing, or if they've seen this or that result. You just can't put that on your label.
When I was with my dude yesterday at Starbucks,
Yeah.
another thing that popped up was he was talking about partnerships, and I was saying that if you don't have to partner with someone, I just don't recommend it.
Yeah.
Just because as we grow in age, we change.
Sure.
1 minute I love mashed potatoes with peanut butter. As I grow older, I realized maybe that's not
nasty.
a delicious combo.
Yeah.
And same thing with business, right?
Sure.
We come into a business at whatever age, and then
Right.
10 years later, not because anyone's a good or bad person, just we change. Things
sure.
change.
Values change, life
so
changes.
I was talking to him, I was like, I don't recommend partnerships, but two, if you are gonna do a partnership, you gotta do a contract. I was like, you just
1000%.
non-negotiable, non-debatable, you just gotta do that. And I was telling him my personal story, how I've been burned by not having a contract.
Yeah.
And even in scenarios where I wasn't burned, it was still just a mistake not to have one.
Sure.
And so I guess this is like a mini commercial for you, if you will, is to not have someone like you in their right hand pocket is silly, because how crazy would it be for you to have the budget and you built $10,000, $20,000, $100,000 worth of inventory, you're ready to come out with it,
Yeah.
and then the labeling is
And the
all
label is
not
not.
up to spec on exactly what needs
Yeah.
to be said, where you could have just had a consultant, which is their entire job
Exactly.
to do these things.
Yes.
I.e. in the scenario with my friend, I was saying you just got to have a contract, just because you just don't know.
What's going to happen?
You just don't know. That's the reality. And in most cases, probably nothing will happen. You know?
Yeah,
And
I mean, especially if you're a small brand, you're like, oh, the FDA is never going to look at me. That is probably true, but you never know. And it would be a real bummer to have your product recalled, to be called out on something. It'll murder your brand and kill your progress.
And sometimes I feel people who have that type of mentality, they already going into you talked about it in our previous video, end in mind. I feel like people who have that type of mentality too, already their end isn't even success.
Right, you don't
You
want to
know,
be big.
you don't even want to be.
You got to have that growth mindset.
Yeah.
If you want to be a big brand, you got to think like a big brand.
Yeah,
I
too
agree.
true. So that's number 2 when it comes to labeling. Part 1, we talked about inventory.
Yes.
Part 2, we talked about the labeling side of it.
Yes.
Number 3, formulation.
Yes. So formulation is kind of the third risk that I've identified through the years of doing this that people need to be aware of and educate themselves on. So there are thousands of ingredients that are available to put into your supplement. You want to know which ingredients are going to work well together. You want to know which ingredients are going to have a high marketing value, which ingredients are going to be expensive, which ones are affordable. So important to know what your formulation is going to look like and kind of manage that risk as well. So at Spectrum, there's a couple different things we can do to educate our clients about this process. I typically recommend going with a private label product to start. So something that's already been formulated, something that you can just put your label on and your brand on, maybe throw in a little marketing ingredient in there to change it up a little bit to make it unique. But you already know that the product works. Typically your manufacturer will already have the ingredients on hand, so it'll be a little bit cheaper for you to manufacture. You already know it has a sales record. You're just putting your brand and your marketing spin and your story onto it. So it's still a risk. You still have to buy that inventory and you have to do the work, but you know that you're walking into a formulation that's already been tried and tested.
Do you feel that a lot of people who are the new entrepreneur, they're like, I don't want the generic thing.
Yes.
I want this to be mine.
Right.
Mine is special.
Sure.
Mine is better.
Yes.
Do you feel that way?
I do, and I think that's fantastic. But I think if you're going to go that route, you just need to know that there's a lot of risk involved. You're going to spend some money on R&D. You probably need to hire an expert, like a biochemist or somebody who's familiar with ingredients that work together. You can scour the internet for all of the scientific research that's backing up different ingredients, but are they going to work well together? Sometimes ingredients cancel each other out. Like a soluble or insoluble fiber mixed together, or a different kind of vitamin mixed together will cancel itself out.
So then it's useless?
So then it's useless.
Oh, wow.
It's completely inefficient. And then you're selling a product that doesn't do
Does
anything.
nothing.
And then
Placebo.
your customers aren't going to return. So just know that if you want to make something really unique, that's a little bit more risk, that you're going to spend a little bit more money. It's going to take a little bit more time. But if you're passionate, then do it.
You know, just to talk about it again on Spectrum's side, that's nice too, because when they get you, you know, as I'm hearing this from the outside, only because I've known you for over a decade, as I hear it, I'm thinking, yeah, Emily has that connection, she has that connection. But, you know, if you're listening to this for the first time, I can see why someone might think or may think that this is overwhelming. They're like, oh my God, I don't know
sure.
any biochemists. I don't know anyone that can. she's talking crazy right now, this girl. She wants me to get a biochemist now I just wanted to come out with a really cool supplement, but that's something too about the all-in-ones like Spectrum and Emily is, you don't just get Emily Chandler, the company, but she can supply, I'm talking in third person, you supply the biochemist, and you have your decades of experience, but then your biochemist in most cases, has 2, 3, 4 decades already of their own. And so they already have all this knowledge within their head about these subjects. So you, as you mentioned earlier, you have thousands of ingredients. Literally, it's amazing when you sit down with the experts like Emily and these chemists, they can already tell you right off the bat, oh, that won't work with this, and this will work with this, and this works really well with this, and this is hot because of this, and this product is selling really well, and the reason why it's selling really well is X, Y, Z, and ABC. Right,
but you have a bright idea and a big $1 million concept for something. Like the latest thing that I've been so turned on by are these supplements for your brain that kind of help you focus and keep you awake, but it's like not caffeine energy, it's like good energy. So that kind of stuff is such a great idea, but I don't know how to make that. So I'm gonna find a doctor, I'm gonna find a brain specialist, I'm gonna find a biochemist who is familiar with these things. And that's what we help clients do at Spectrum.
Something that truly is amazing when it comes to this is, we talked about, there's a million different types of chocolate protein powder. There's a million different types of eyeliner, blush, and all these, there's just so many of them. And then when it comes to the ingredient side, you said there's literally thousands of ingredients. But, even as we talk, for anyone who's wondering or thinking, as I've often done in the past is, well, it's already oversaturated. There's already too many people. When the reality is, after we're done with this video, in 6 months, someone that we've never heard of will come out with their product. That's just another label of it, and literally sell $1 million worth a month.
For real.
$12 million over the course of a year.
I always, and this is what I love about marketing is, there's only one you and there's only one story that only you can tell. And you got to go back to that. So even though this market is super saturated, you're probably not going to come up with anything that's like totally unique, first of its kind, but you can market it that way. And only you can tell that story, and I think that's really, really exciting.
And your delivery of it will sell or could sell. And the fun part for me too is, as you put all this time and effort into this beautiful product that you've created, that you believe in, that is a great product. It's on you now to put it out there and really test your limits and see what can you do, how can you do it, and how tricky can it be, and really push yourself to new limits that you've never been.
So fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. Beautiful, Emily. So give us a recap.
Okay, so 3 big risks that you should start to think about if you want to launch a supplement brand.
And lunch.
Number 1, and lunch. Yeah, it's almost lunchtime. Thinking about your inventory. Be aware that that's a big risk. Knowing how much product to order. That product is going to expire eventually, so make sure that you're not ordering too much and it's sitting on a shelf for a couple years. Number 2, you want to be aware of the risks involved in your labeling. You want to make sure your labels are FDA compliant, that you're not making any outrageous claims that are going to get you in any trouble, and making sure that you have help and support to guide you in navigating what needs to go on your label. And then the last thing is your formulation. Having help with knowing what ingredients are going to work together, what combination of ingredients are going to yield the best efficacy for your product and make your customers happy. And but there is a risk there because, unless you're a biochemist or you've been doing supplements for years and years, we don't know.
One of the biggest alarms that I'm hearing as you're speaking is one of the lessons I learned from my mentor, FM, and he always told me, and I've actually, unfortunately, had to learn from those mistakes. And I know I mentioned it earlier, but it's about, he's like, you need to get a good lawyer, James, that if you're gonna go into a business venture, you gotta get a good lawyer and get that contract settled. And as I'm hearing you talking, even if you're watching this and you're like, I actually don't think I need Spectrum, I think I'm ready and all that, and they very well may be.
Yeah, you might be.
But I would still encourage you, just from my own previous life experiences, that even if it is just having you work with you purely as an overseeing consultant, just to oversee and make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, that alone can save you potentially millions, if not potentially, again, billions of dollars, depending on how much and where this product idea could go when it comes to just so many different variables that literally could be 80 miles away that you just don't see it right now, but someone with a forecast like yourselves will see coming from literally 10 feet away.
Fantastic advice, fantastic advice.
So that was one of the biggest things that my mentors ever told me, that to me, hiring a lawyer is no different from a consultant agency like yourself. And it's, if we're gonna go into business and you're gonna do it the right way, you got to make sure yourself is protected in every way, shape, or possible. And everything that you shared today, the part that's I don't know if scares is the right word, but the part that I would really be quote unquote paranoid about for myself would be that labeling and making sure that if you're gonna, I can't even imagine making 10,000 of something with those 10,000 labels all incorrectly, not up to code.
Even if you're compliant and you have a typo, I mean, stuff
That's
like
wild.
that happens. And then you have, 20,000 labels of something where a word is spelled wrong, and you can't put that out. That's terrible.
Wild.
Yeah.
Emily, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
How does the audience get a hold of you?
You can find me online, spectrumproductsolutions.com, or on Instagram, Facebook with the same handle, Spectrum Product Solutions. And I love talking to people, reaching out to people, learning about what they're interested in, what they want to build. And so please reach out to me and see how I can help.
And if you're nervous to talk to Miss Emily and you just want me to ask her for you, join our community, 702-602-8802. Again, our community number is 702-602-8802. And you can ask us any question, and then I will drag her back here at our studio, and we will get that answered for you live in this video. If you have not liked this video, do us a favor, like it. You can leave a comment below if you have any questions for us also over there. And also consider subscribing to our channel, because we have Emily Chandler, Taylor, Dylan. We have so many amazing people and so much more down the pipeline coming down for the Wondour channel that we're just so excited to be able to share with you guys anything when it comes to the business world of technology, all the way to building yourself products that you can then put onto your technology pieces that you're building, which it gets all of us excited.
Exciting, yeah.
Yes, gets all of us excited, and we love talking about it. So until our next episode, Miss Chandler, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And we'll see each other soon.